Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Kwentong GK. Tonight is another special night, and tonight is our actually 12th episode. Can you believe it? I sure can't. But this evening we have a very, very special guest. Um, he is actually was one of the richest men in the UK under the age of 30. He gave up his affluent life to work for the poor and later started a social enterprise called Human Nature with his wife, Ana Meloto Wilk, and his sister in law, Camille Meloto Rodriguez. Welcome, Dylan.
Hi, Donna. So good to see you. Been a long
So,
time.
yeah, it's been a long time. I was just telling Dylan earlier how I'm excited and nervous at the same time because we have not seen each other in a long, long time. Must have been a decade at least, I'm thinking.
Yeah, could be. Could easily be. Maybe about
Yes.
this time. I don't even remember. Yeah.
How
Long.
are you and Anna and the kids?
Well, we're great. We've multiplied.
I see that
Yeah.
on the pictures on Facebook and everything.
When I first started coming to the US for GK, I wasn't married, had no kids. Now married with six kids, and the eldest is 15 already. Ariel's 15. So,
Oh
yeah.
wow. Oh wow.
Well,
The last time when you guys were touring the US for the GK Highway of Hope, I think the youngest one was Chloe. Was it?
yeah.
Wasn't it? Oh wow.
So we
My
He was
goodness.
only 7 months old when we set off, and
Yes.
he's 13. So
Oh my
yeah,
gosh. I feel old.
you don't look old.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You haven't changed a bit either. You're so, you obviously have been blessed. You and Anna have been blessed not only with, with human nature, but, with a family of six kids. And that's wonderful. That's amazing.
You know what? You can only raise six kids in the Philippines. I don't think you can raise kids in the US, right? That would be impossible. It would be so difficult. But here, it's not that bad. Yeah, you have a lot of help and family around. So
Yeah. You have the entire village or villages, right? To help you. Awesome. Well, I'm pretty sure a lot of people who have been involved in the work for Gawad Kalinga and work for the poor already know you, and especially those who have been involved in this work for the past, more than 10 years. I actually started this work with Gawad Kalinga in 2003. And so I know there are a lot of people who are tuning in right now, watching us, and they know you and they miss you, right? But for those people who may not know you, maybe hearing from you for the first time, right? Can you just tell us a little bit of, how you knew about Gawad Kalinga?
yeah, okay. So I was in England back in 2003, and I was actually born to a poor family. But of course, being poor in England is different to being poor in the Philippines. And I got to go to a good school. I got free education and everything. And at the age of 20, I was able to borrow some money to start a computer game business. And I borrowed that money from Prince Charles. Believe it or not, I wrote to him, and he agreed to lend me a little bit of money. And my computer game business became very successful. It was the biggest direct selling computer game company in the whole of Europe after just a few years. And so I had everything I could dream of at the age of 25. I had a Ferrari, Porsche. I used to go to work by helicopter. Everything that you could dream of as a young man. But I knew deep inside me that it was all pointless, that I was really not happy. I felt like I'd turned away from everything I'd learned from my family about God and about loving the poor. And I'd just become this selfish person, greedy person. And I remember one night I was in the Beverly Hills Hotel, and I got on my knees at the side of the bed and I prayed, Lord, why did you bless me? Why am I rich? I don't deserve any of this. I'm not doing anything useful. And I just felt this strong compulsion that God was telling me to step down, to leave my company, and that he would give me something different. And so I left my company. I went all around the world trying to find something I could help for 6 months, didn't find anything that really convinced me it had an answer to poverty until a friend of mine from the Philippines came to England, and she was a volunteer in Gawad Kalinga. And she told me about GK. In fact, she said she was feeling guilty because for the price of the plane ticket to England, she could have built 2 houses in the Philippines for the poor. And I thought, what kind of house is this? You know, costs the same as a handbag in England. Who are these people living in handbags in the Philippines? And I didn't know much about the Philippines. All I knew was Abu Sayyaf, Imelda's shoes, and Smoky Mountain. So that's all I really knew about the Philippines. But she convinced me to come and look. And what I saw really blew my mind. I went to Bagong Silan in Caloocan City, the very first GK village, and met Tito Tony there, as he was to me then. He's now my father-in-law, but I met him and he showed me around. And it really amazed me. It was the first time I was seeing places that used to be slums that were no longer slums. They were now beautiful, peaceful communities. The kids were in school. There was no one drinking in the streets. And I wanted to help. So I went back to England. I was only here for a very short while. And the first thing I saw when I got back home to England was the brand new BMW that I just bought a few weeks before, waiting for me in the airport. And I remember looking at it and feeling sick to my stomach. I thought, wow, this one car is worth about 80 houses in the Philippines. You know, and I started to weigh up in my mind, which is more important, you know, my driving, which I really enjoyed, or the lives of maybe 300 people that could be changed if I let go of this car. And so I just wanted to donate. So I emailed Tony Meloto and I said, you didn't ask me for money, but I've made a decision. I'm going to sell my car and I'd like to send you the money. And please use it to build a village. If you can, please call it the GK BMW Village. But his answer in life, he said, if you really want to help, please don't just send your money. Why don't you come back? And you help to build those houses. And maybe you'll learn about what we're doing with other people. So I came back. This was in April 2003, same year as you. And I was supposed to stay just for 6 weeks. But I fell in love with Gawad Kalinga, fell in love with the Philippines. And then, of course, fell in love with his daughter, who's now my Anna. And so that's where the 6 kids came from. And so it was really a love story. GK was a love story for me from the beginning. In the end, Tony Meloto got almost all my money for Gawad Kalinga. I got his daughter. And so I think it's a fair price, you know. She was well worth the investment.
That's how I was going to introduce you, how you fell in love with the Philippines, fell in love with Gawad Kalinga, and then later on fell in love with Anna. But then I figure, you know what, that's, you know, I'm not going to spoil, you know, for those people who haven't really, you know, met you and, you know, haven't known about your story yet. But, you know, you got to live under a rock, right? Not to know your story, because a lot of people already know, you know, who you are, and you've done a lot of interviews and everything. I just feel really honored to be able to chat with you in this way. We used to chat just at the back, you know, you being at the back of my car or something, right? But now we're chatting like in front of all these people who are hearing about Gawad Kalinga and, you know, and the work that it does for the poor. So you mentioned, you know, Gawad, you know, how you were looking for, you know, for organizations who are really, you know, changing the making an impact in people's lives and everything, right? How or in what ways do you think Gawad Kalinga is really being the voice of the poor?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because for the last couple of years, there's a community close to where I live here. I now live in Laguna, and there's a little community that we've been trying to help, a community of squatters. They were given land under agrarian reform, and then they were cheated out of the land. They were told to move to another piece of land so that what they were given could be developed. And that land was you know, it was stolen from them. They accidentally signed away their rights without knowing what they were doing. And so they've been squatting then for 30 years on this piece of land with no electricity, no water. And I've been trying to figure out a way to help them, you know, and talking to everyone I can find. And there's just no way to help people like them unless you're doing it through Gawad Kalinga. For a while, I was trying just to talk to the mayor and some powerful people here in our city, and this was because we're going through lockdown and so on. So I didn't really want to bother Gawad Kalinga too much. But we can't get anywhere without Gawad Kalinga. And just this morning, Luis told me he's going to be here next week, so he's going to be able to come and we'll talk to the mayor together and see what we can do for those people. And so, this is a story that I think has played out thousands and thousands of times in the Philippines, where the poor are just swept under the rug. Everything that they thought they were going to have was just stolen from them, cheated out of their, they were cheated out of it and so on. And there's no one with the strength to stand up and really help them. And, especially these days, it's pretty difficult these days. But not only that, I mean, there is the land and housing and so on, which is a big part of what GK still does. But now there's also the other piece, which is hunger, because, especially this year, I think it was very important that GK started to get into feeding a couple of years ago. Of course, they didn't know what was coming. We didn't know what was coming. But now we see with the impact of COVID and the lockdown, millions of people have lost their jobs. The jeepney drivers just sitting on the side of the streets begging for food. And it's heartbreaking to see so much more hunger now than there was 2 or 3 years ago here in the Philippines. And again, GK now has this big network of feeding centers and kitchens and is really able to help there. So, there are organizations that are helping in small ways. But I think GK still has that number of volunteers, not just volunteers, but heroes, real sacrificing heroes that are willing to just stick at it. I mean, you've been here since 2003, same as me. We can see the same faces, right? As you go around the provinces, you see people like Buboy in Leyte and Tita Jerome, and it's the same people. People like Tita Noel Grino in Mindanao, and they've been doing it now for almost 20 years. And it's their life, is putting their faith into action. And on the day we die, when we appear before God, this is the work that we will bring to him. This is what we will have to show for our lives. And so, it's beautiful to be part of it. And I really honor you, Donna. You've stayed in it all these years as well. And you're over there. You might feel like, in the US, you can only do so much. You're on the other side of the world, but God put you there. God's using you to help restore your motherland, your home country.
Well, thank you, Dylan, for saying that. That is really, sweet of you to say that. But I really do feel that whatever little contribution I make, it doesn't really compare to the heroism that, people over there are showing. Like a lot of our GK workers, full-time workers could very well get, jobs from, multinational companies, like big corporations and everything, and make good money and maybe even, provide better, maybe at least financially, for their families. But they choose Gawad Kalinga, they choose the poor. And so I really honor them, and I've had the pleasure of, talking to some of them, a couple of them now, like Bing Importante, for example, and Mark, Lawrence Cruz, and then of course Luis and Isa, and all of those people. Like it just there's no shortage of people with big hearts, right? And Gawad Kalinga, and I just feel very honored to be part of this work. So you alluded to how some of us here, believe it or not, Dylan, and I feel really bad about this. I have not even been involved in the GK build. Like I've seen I have visited. I started my work for the poor way back in college, right? So I've seen poverty in different sectors of a Philippine society. And so when I saw the GK Enchanted Farm, that is actually, no, there's 2 villages I think that I visited, that and one of the UST, doctors villages there I visited. So I've seen how Gawad Kalinga transforms communities, not only the physical houses, but also how they really transform the people there, like the behavior changes and all of that, right? But so for me and maybe some people who have not really seen the work of Gawad Kalinga firsthand, right? What can we do, right? How can we help in maybe meaningfully participate in social justice, in making an impact in people's lives, in the lives of people who are poor and disadvantaged in the Philippines?
Yeah, well, Donna, you're part of the body of Christ. And there's that passage in the Bible that says that, you know, the hand is not more important than the foot, and the eye is not more important than the ear. And, you know, there are people who are working over here with their hands, and there are others who enable the work to happen because of their mouths. And you and I, we're mouths. You know, basically, that's our main.
Literally, right? We have the gift of gab.
Yeah, at least for GK. Yeah, and so I take a lot of courage. You know, I haven't physically built a whole house by myself either. I've spent some days, you know, working, but you know, I can't say that I've built a single house with my hands, but I know I've raised houses with my mouth, you know, in raising the resources that others then were able to put into the ground and build up. And so, you know, I think that's important as well, not to think that you're less important just because you're doing a different part of the work. And the people who are on the ground, you know, just for example, doing the reports to send to our partners in the US, that's incredibly important as well. You know, that's incredibly important, because if people in the US don't know what's happening, they'll give up. They'll think, there's nothing going on. I'm not needed anymore. So every part of the work is important. And I take a lot of strength from that passage in the Bible that says every single part is important. And sometimes it's the parts you don't see that are the most important, you know. So I want to encourage everyone out there to continue to do your part to help support the work. Some of you are supporting financially, you know, please continue to do that. We still need it. We still need it. We can't feed without the money to get the food. You know, we can't build without the money to buy the concrete and so on. Please continue to do that. And others are supporting through your testimonies, through sharing things on Facebook, through just writing about it, telling your kids, you know, building up the heart in others. You know, what amazed me, or what was one of the most beautiful parts of being in GK for me for the last 17 years, is seeing the light go on in people's eyes. People who for so long have given up on the Philippines, or given up on thinking that they can do very much, suddenly realizing, I want to do this. I want to be part of this. I want to be in. And, you know, that knowledge that they can do something really to help, because so many people have been disillusioned, you know, given to organizations and the money got wasted. You know, nothing was there to show after a while. But in GK, it's all there to see. You can see the houses go up. You can see the kids get fatter, you know. So, and so that's a beautiful part when somebody on the other side of the world who thinks, you know, especially those that left, not because they desperately wanted to leave the Philippines, but many Philams left in tears, right? Leaving their loved ones behind, leaving everything they knew behind, everything they cared about, to start a life in a new country, a cold place. Imagine a Filipino going to the freezing north of Chicago. You know,
don't remind me, I'm actually freezing now. I'm in Chicago.
And so many left, you know, not with joy, some with joy for sure, and others in tears. And even those that left in joy, I think there comes a point in everyone's life when you think, I wish I could help. You know, I'm glad I'm out of it, but I wish I could help. And GK gives that way, not just to say I can help the Philippines, but I can help my province. I can even help my hometown in many cases.
Right.
And I can back and I can say, yes, you know, you raised me. You gave me life. And here I am giving life back to you. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things.
That's so true. You know, I said this before that, you know, like my wish is for Filipinos to, like, if they have to leave the Philippines, it's because they want to travel, or because they, you know, they just want a different life, but not necessarily a better life. Does that make sense? Or a better, you know, like because of pursuit of greener pasture, or you know, anything like that, where they couldn't find that same opportunity in the Philippines, you know? So my wish is whenever Filipinos have to leave the Philippines, it's because they, you know, they want to enrich their lives, but not because that opportunity is not available in the Philippines. And you also mentioned, you know, like speaking of gifts and everything, right? I mean, it's so true. We all have our own gifts to share, and we know what those gifts are, right? If we just remain true to those gifts and share those gifts to, you know, to improve or impact the lives of others, then it will be a much beautiful world, wouldn't it? All right. Well, you've been referencing to the Bible a few times in the first one, maybe 20 minutes of our interview here, and I know I've I've watched some of the interviews you've done with with other media outlets and everything, and you mentioned that you do your business by the book, and by the book, we actually mean the Bible, right? So can you tell us how you do that with with Human Nature being one of the co-founders?
Yeah, well, first of all, yeah, I was a full-time volunteer in GK for 6.5 years, something like that, and then it was my wife Anna and Camille, her sister, who came up with the idea for Human Nature. They wanted to start a business that was producing natural and organic personal care products. We had a couple of children then, and we saw that in America, Americans can afford to use what's good for them, but here in the Philippines, natural products, safe products were still only for the rich. And so they wanted to produce something that was safe and affordable for ordinary people. And so they were trying to convince me to get involved. And at first I really didn't want to be involved at all. I said, well, I don't care about dark underarms. I can't bring I don't care about lipstick, that's your thing. But one day Anna said to me, you know what, you should pray about it. And I said, okay, fine, I'll pray about it. There's no way God wants me to leave Gowan.
Yeah, from computer games, right, to lipsticks. I would say that's a big job.
Yeah. So I sat and I prayed. And whenever I make a big decision in life, I always pray about it. And I try to empty myself of what I want in order to hear what God wants to say to me. And to my horror, when I started to pray, I really felt God telling me that I needed to do this with them. And so I couldn't understand it at first. And then I started to realize, I'd grown up poor in England, but because there is opportunity in England, just like you were talking about a minute ago with opportunity, I was able to start my business and have a good life. But here in the Philippines, if you're born to a poor family in the Philippines, the chances are you're going to be poor for the rest of your life unless you leave the Philippines. And so I started to understand that, if the poor are going to be unpoor, they have to earn a decent salary. They have to earn a decent wage. And that can only happen in the workplace. We often think it's government's job to make people not poor. But, it's the private sector. It's business that employs people. It's business that has the money. And as long as people are only earning minimum wage, they will be desperately poor. The minimum wage is not enough. And so when we started it, we got on our knees and we really prayed, Lord, we don't know anything about what we're doing. We don't know anything about manufacturing. We don't know about formulating, but we believe you've called us to this. So please show us how you want this to be done. And a few things came to us very quickly. So one was not to pay the minimum wage, but to pay the living wage. And the living wage is about double the minimum wage. And so we did that. We did that right from the beginning. We were paying much more than the minimum wage. And I just want to tell you, this was at the time when we'd given almost all our money to Gawad Kalinga. What we had left was about 3 million pesos. What's that now? About $50,000 or something. We put all of that into building the new company. And so it's not because we had a lot of money that we decided to pay double the minimum wage. It's because we felt that was the right thing to do. We decided if this is going to be a business, it's not going to be a business like others. It's going to be a business that will get people out of poverty so they will not need to leave. They will not need to go abroad. And so, God just provided enough for us to be able to do that. And I think that helped us to be a better business, more efficient, and we had to have better quality control and things. We couldn't make mistakes to be able to do that. Another thing that we felt God telling us was no work on Sunday. He kept telling me, protect the Sabbath, protect the Sabbath. And I thought, what does he mean? This was even before we started Human Nature. And then when we started the company, I realized, because the Sabbath, Sunday, is family day and it's time for God. And so many people these days end up working 7 days a week, especially here in the Philippines, or working Sundays. So they don't have that time to be with their family. They don't have the time to be a good parent or a good husband or wife. And so right from the beginning, we closed on Sundays. That was very bad for us. It meant that we couldn't put our stores in the malls. And so for years, we didn't have a human nature store in the malls. And so we could have been double the size probably if we opened on Sunday. But every time I prayed about it, I felt God telling me, you do what you know is right, son, you close, look after my people. And then after 9 years, SM, the biggest mall owner here, they came to us and they said, okay, we want human nature in the malls. Even if you close on Sunday, we'll just charge you a penalty for closing on Sunday, but you can come into our malls. And I said, okay, I'll take it. So we close on Sunday. For 12 years now, we've been closing on Sunday. And one other thing, one thing that I really felt very strongly is walang iwanan. You know, we know that in GK, walang iwanan, we don't give up on the poor. But in the workplace, the poor don't tend to last very long. You know, they haven't had good education. They haven't seen good work ethic. So when they come into the workplace, the quality of their work is very low. They come to work late. You know, they have this slum mentality that they bring into the workplace. And one thing that God put on me early on was to have a no firing policy. And every business person I've talked to thinks that's a terrible idea. You know, they think, why will somebody work if he knows he won't get fired? But in human nature, we've seen it's been the opposite. When you say to someone who's poor, we are not going to give up on you. You're going to make mistakes, but your family will be safe. For the first time in their life, that person feels that they have genuine hope for the future, you know? We've seen that with the poor, they think they're useless. They think they're no good. They think they're disposable. You know, that's what they've been told their whole life, and that's what they believe. And when they come into human nature and they find that they get regularized and they find that they mess up, but they don't get fired, we keep them. We have sanctions, you know, that we give to people if they're behaving badly. Like, for example, if they keep coming to work late, then in the end, we're going to send them to the farm and they're going to start work at 4 a.m. until they come on time. After that, they never come to work late again. So we've just tried to, when we started, we just really prayed hard. Lord, how do you want business to be done? Because I want to tell you, my country, England, many Filipinos don't know, it used to be worse than the Philippines. England was a country of slums. The government was very corrupt. And what changed England in the 1800s was not the government. It was the business people. There was this movement that swept through the business people, the big industrialists, where many of them converted, they became Christians, and they started to live out their faith in a new way. They started to build houses for their workers. They built schools for their workers, hospitals for their workers. And eventually England changed. And the town I grew up in was all built by one man. He was the biggest factory owner at that time, the richest person in the north of England, and he converted to Christianity, and he just started giving it all away by building these houses. And the houses he built 150 years ago, they are still standing and they're still lived in. They're still there. Hundreds of houses, and they're still there. He built them out of stone. So they're still, you know, brick. So they're still there. And
Wow.
so town thinking, you know, I learned about it in school. It didn't mean anything to me. But when we started Human Nature, suddenly it came back to me. And I realized, yeah, if business is done in a different way, then the Philippines can start to change. And so to change poverty in the Philippines, it's going to take a lot of interventions. It's going to take, you know, of course, building GK villages, taking away the slum environment so that slum habits will also start to disappear. It's going to take feeding and nutrition, and it's also going to take a transformation in business, in how business is done, that it will genuinely care for the poor. You know, many businesses, the way they think is we'll focus on the business, they pay minimum wage, 5-month contracts, you know, keep our costs low, and then at the end of the year, we'll give something to charity. But actually, they would be better off getting all their workers out of poverty first. You know, get your workers out, pay them a decent salary, give them a chance. And then, I mean, we've seen God's blessing on Human Nature. Like I said, we didn't know anything when we were starting. We just had to pray. And there've been so many times we were faced with what seemed impossible. We were faced with what seemed like bankruptcy, you know, a couple of times. And God just stepped in and God just rescued us in miraculous ways.
You
I can't
guys have,
all day about it,
yeah,
but
you guys have done an amazing job. I mean, all these business, policies which are not really, sound, for like you said, for most entrepreneurs, for most business people, those are not really sound policies. And
yeah, that's right. Actually, you know what's funny? When we started out, some of the big business people, I won't name them, but some of them are in GK. They were telling us, this will never work in the Philippines. That might work in England, but you're going to go bankrupt. You're going to lose everything. So they were telling me this out of concern for
Yeah.
me, thinking we were going to lose everything. And then when we started and we got going, they were saying, oh, you know what? You can only do that because you're small. You're just 20 people, 30 people. Now we're 650 people, and people are saying to us, oh, you can only do that because you're big, you know? So at first they were saying you can only do it because you're small. Now they're saying you can only do it because we're big. But the truth is, if you commit to doing things God's way, God is faithful to his promises. God is a God we can depend on. He is truthful. He is faithful. He is powerful. He is loving and compassionate. And if we just throw ourselves at his feet, Lord, show us what to do, and we'll do it. And we can trust him. That's what we found.
Amen to that. Wow, this is amazing. Before we go on, I just want to read a comment from Soledad Obedoza Montilla. She commented on our Facebook Live. We're live on Facebook right now. She said, Dylan was one of the people who inspired me and our family to join the bandwagon to help our less fortunate brothers and sisters in the Philippines. And so,
yes, hello, Tita Sol. Haven't seen you for a long time. Nice to at least see you there on the comments. I hope to see you soon.
And then we also have another comment from Teddy Oliveros Amoloza. He said, that's why American students should learn from Dylan's model of running a business.
Thank you, Tita.
Have a brave heart like you, right? And, like you said, it really takes a lot of faith in the goodness of the Lord and his faithfulness. He's faithful to us first, right? Like I've been, I'm a testimony to this as well. Like how God really provides. You just have to trust the voice that speaks to you, to your heart, and everything will work out just fine, right? We have another one right here. It says, again, from Teddy, GK is a model for development that should be taught in schools, college especially. I agree, Teddy. And that's amazing. Now, okay, at this point, I want to encourage everybody. They're actually sent me questions before we even, before we started this episode. But I encourage everyone to just put in your comments or your questions in the comments. And Chrissy Saplala is helping us monitor those comments, and she's sharing those with us here on our Zoom video call right here. So please go ahead and put in your questions and comments, and we will be reading them as we move along. All right. So well, since we're talking about human nature and everything, again, you guys, hats off to you. It's just really amazing how you're doing, business the way you do business, and how you're impacting so many people's lives. And I think I've actually even heard and watched an interview where you said some people would would steal from you, and you'd still keep them, and they their life they turn around, right? And they live
Actually, that's where the no firing policy came from. And, I don't want to take any honor for this. This is all God, because, yeah, we had that situation. One of our first employees, we found one day he was stealing from us. And I was so disappointed because, he was a very trusted person, and he was a bit older, in his 50s. And it took me a couple of days before I could even face him. I didn't want to see him. I was so upset. For a couple of days I was praying, Lord, what do I do? And the word that just kept coming to me was forgive. And I thought, well, what do you mean, Lord? I'm just going to let him get away with it. That's it. That he's not going to learn his lesson. He's just going to keep stealing from us. And I kept praying and thinking and praying and thinking. And eventually I sat down with him and I said, first of all, I don't know why you did this, but I've been trying to remind myself that you're a good dad, that you love your daughter, and I want you to explain to me why you did this. No, I said, I've made a decision. I'm not going to give up on you. We're going to find a way through this, but I want you to explain why you did this to me. And he couldn't speak. He started to cry. He stood up and he left the room. And he came back a few days later, and then he sat down and he confessed. He said he's been doing this his entire life. From his very first job, he would steal. And because he thought he's going to lose that job anyway, just get what he can. And then when he would get fired, he would think, okay, I got my punishment. And then he would move on and steal from the next job. And he had job after job where he was stealing. And he said this was the first time in his life he went home and he could not look himself in the mirror. And his wife, who also knew, what was happening, she felt so ashamed. And so he kind of poured his heart out. And I could see, the tears, the floods of tears. He was like, really crying. And so we decided to keep him. And that's where the no firing policy came from, Walang Iwanan. And he was able to change. He's still with us. We don't let him handle the money anymore. You don't send an alcoholic to the pub to buy you some whiskey or something. We didn't let him handle the money. We trained him to do other things in the company where he will not be tempted in that way anymore. And he's still with us. So that was 7-8 years ago or something. And he's still with us. And you know what? He also used to be kind of masungit before, but he changed. He improved. He started attending our, every Monday morning we would have an assembly where we would sing worship, and we would have a little gospel reading. And he started attending those. Those were optional for everyone. He started attending. So he's really changed. So I can really see, God's wisdom. And what hit me, there was a passage in the Bible where Jesus said, someone asked Jesus, how many times should I forgive my brother if he sins against me? 7 times? And Jesus said, not 7, but 70. And then he said, what is impossible in the eyes of men is possible for God. And that's what really hit me. Yes, this sounds impossible, that people who do this can change. Our human instinct is to get revenge. Our human instinct is to punish. Our human instinct is to get those people as far away from us as possible. But God really convicted me when I was praying about it, not to do that to him. And it's happened a couple of other times. We've had a couple of other people who stole, and in one of those instances, that person left as soon as they were found out. They didn't even give me the chance to talk to them. We never saw them again. In the other, they are also still with us, and they were able to change. So, I don't believe it's going to work every time. When you try and do things God's way, there are times you're going to lose, because it's the way of the cross. It's the way of crucifixion. There are days when it's going to feel like you're just being nailed to the cross, and everything is just so painful. But after the crucifixion comes the resurrection. And I'm happy with that no firing policy. It's one of the things I'm most happy about in human nature, that we did not give up on those people. Because where are they going to go? Actually, there was one story I'll tell you. When I first arrived in the Philippines, I'd only been here a couple of weeks, and I went to the wake of this teenager with Tito Tony. He took me there. And this guy used to be a gang member, Akyat Bahay. He even used to kill people for a living, for money. And he had changed because of Gawad Kilinga. He'd come to God, he laid down his weapons, and he got a job in a candle factory. And then one day he lost his job. He got fired. And he thought to himself, what am I going to do? I can't go back to the gang. And he decided, the world is better off without me. And he took a gun and he shot himself, 17 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Job, just because he lost his job. And that always stuck with me. So, when that thing happened at the start of human nature, that's what came back to my mind. And I felt God telling me, how many times did I not give up on you? God saying that to me. How many times did you deserve to be kicked out? But I did not give up on you. And so we made a decision. We will not give up on the people God sends. And so all this year as well with COVID, it's been really tough because our sales have been badly affected. Our sales are heavily down. Most of our people this year, we've been on 3 days a week, 4 days a week, reduced salaries, but we made a decision at the beginning in March. We already thought it will go on a long while, but maybe not quite this long. But we made a decision. We will not let anybody go Nobody will be laid off. Everybody will sacrifice together. And so everybody's been taking a lower salary. The people at the top, much lower salary or no salary, so that we can keep everyone else in the boat. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. We have a comment from Jose Maria Montelibano, Tito Boy. Hello. He's oh, when you are doing it right, when it's doable, when you are small, and it's doable when you are big.
That's right. It's doable.
Yeah.
We can't do it on our own strength, but if you bring your worries before God, He will find a way.
Amazing. And so now we have a question from Mariano Santos, Tito Ano. You remember him, right?
Yes. Hi, Tito Ano.
He's the publisher of Pinoy here in Chicago. He asks, is the business model of human nature an integral part of the Enchanted Farm curriculum? If yes, was it applied to its new ventures successfully?
Oh, well, to be honest, I don't really know the answer to that. And it would be Mark Lawrence Cruz who could better answer. We're involved in the Enchanted Farm, and we've had interns coming from the Enchanted Farm. We've had social enterprises that we've helped incubate from the Enchanted Farm. I just don't know for sure how much of what human nature does is taught in the curriculum. I believe that our policies are shared with them all, but shared as a sort of, here are some options of how you can do social enterprise, rather than it being a hard and fast model that they recommend copying. But Mark would be a better one to answer that in detail.
All right. In one of your interviews as well, and this is something I read. I think I read and watched videos and everything, because I feel like I don't want to ask questions that we would, I feel like I obviously know your background story and everything, but I don't want to assume that everybody knows and deprive them of the opportunity to know you and your work and human nature's work. But in one of your interviews, it was mentioned that human nature is changing the concept of social enterprise, and the interview said that you did not want to claim that, and I don't understand why. And then I'm not sure if it was just I don't know what you meant by that, or if you did say that you did not want to claim it.
I don't remember that exact comment, but what I remember is when we started Human Nature, social enterprises. When people thought of social enterprise, they usually thought of, people making rosaries out of newspaper, pity purchase, something that you would buy out of pity for the poor. And when we started, we wanted it to be a little different. We wanted it to be world class. That people would buy these products, not just because they were helping, but because they actually really liked the products and enjoyed the products. And we thought that's the way that this can be mainstreamed. That's the way that this can be big, because a pity purchase usually only happens once, but people are going to wash their hair every day for the rest of their life. They're going to wash their face every day for the rest of their life, wash their dishes every day for the rest of their life. So if they like the product, then we can really get people out of poverty, because for the next 20 years, 30 years, they could use a product produced by a company, whether it's Human Nature or another company, that's getting people out of poverty. And so we wanted to try to, just like GK, GK's mentality was, we don't want people to stay poor. We want them to not be poor anymore. That's why we're doing it this way. And so in Human Nature, we wanted to try to encourage other social enterprises to think like that try to think of being world class. Try to think that, you can make chocolate that tastes better than Nestle. You can make tea that tastes better than Lipton, and people will buy it then for the rest of their lives because they love the product. And that's how we're going to give those people stable jobs, for 10, 20 years that will really get them out of poverty. So I think maybe that's where the difference in what social enterprise was back then and what it is thought of today. But, we were also, we got that from the GK model. I don't want to claim that as my own. That came from the GK model of trying to make people really unpoor, get them out of poverty. And GK, of course, has always looked at things as world-class. Why shouldn't the poor have beauty? Why shouldn't the houses be painted? Why shouldn't they be landscaped? If that's good enough for the rich in the big subdivisions, then the poor also deserve that, and that's been the GK mindset since the start.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the things that really resonated with me when I first learned about GK. It was actually Luis Oqueñena who did that talk. Oh my gosh, August 2003. I clearly remember. But one of the things that really resonated with me is that when Tito Tony, and maybe even Luis at the time, said that Gawad Kalinga is not about charity. It's not about, dole out and giving people alms and everything, right? Not that we are not trying to, diminish the efforts of people to help out. If that's, if that comes from their hearts and they want to give, money or in kind or whatever, that's all good, right? But Gawad Kalinga is really much more than that. It really is changing our mentality as Filipino people, right? That, it's not, it's no, it's really empowering us to, rise up and really, and really rise people out, alleviate poverty and take them out of poverty, and we can all, be a, a prosperous, nation and people.
Yeah.
Um,
That's what the word kalinga means, isn't it? It's like a
right, to give care, right?
deep, deep love. Yeah.
So Tito Boy Jose Maria Montalibano here again has a comment, and I think this actually addresses maybe partly of what Tito Anong Mariano Santos was asking. He said there is no way that the example of Dylan will not influence anything GK teaches. So the example of human nature, and what you guys do. Even though we're not Gawad Kalinga is not really imposing those policies on other social enterprises that are born out of the GK Enchanted Farm, it is, it's a great example, and and some social enterprises may follow suit as well. All right, so we also have, what else we have here? Just scrolling through, I want to make sure I read them. GK is a model for development that, oh, I read that already, that should be taught in schools, college especially. And then, hold on, sorry. Okay, from Gemma Villamor Kovlaxin, I don't know if I probably butchered your last name, I'm so sorry. She said, amen, amen. God really provides. My testimony of my spa business, natural skin bar during this pandemic. Oops, sorry. It skipped, sorry. During this pandemic. Oh, he got my back time and again. So blessed to be part of this organization, learning a lot from you, Dylan. And then from Maricel, our very own GKUSA Executive Director. She said, thank you, Dylan Wilk, for making personal and business decisions based on its impact on the least powerful and the most deprived. All right. Well, at this point, there might be other. Okay, question from Teddy. One question, and then before we head on to the special gift sets that Human Nature is offering, right? Question from Teddy: have you had any conversations with other entrepreneurs who profess being socially conscious about your business model, and will they be willing to adopt your model?
Yeah, actually, a lot. Want to do things the way that Human Nature has been able to do them, and many are sort of afraid to do it. I've heard a lot of times people say, I wish I could do what you do. And I usually answer that by saying, well, where can you start? Don't think that you can't do everything that we do, because we didn't do everything that we do in the beginning. We did a little, and we just kind of added in a lot of these things over the years. And so where can you start? Maybe you can start with your best person in your company, or your best 10, depending on what kind of company it is. Maybe there's something you can do just to increase your minimum wage. So I'm part of this little group called the Christian Business Owners Fellowship. And many of them have done things like increase their minimum wage, not doubled maybe, but, going up like 10%, 15%. And that's still a big help. It's still a big help. And what I've noticed is it's almost impossible to do it if you don't have a strong faith in God, because my courage to do these things doesn't come from me. It doesn't come from thinking, I can do this, I'm clever enough. No, not at all. Not at all. We didn't know anything about what we were doing when we started. My courage to do it came from that faith in God, that strong faith in God. And it has to be faith in action. You know, when I remember when I first came to the Philippines, looking around, and it amazed me at how much religion there is in the Philippines. You see it on the side of Jeeps, you know, praise the Lord and things like that, you know, and everywhere you looked, there were churches and people seemed to really have a faith in God. But there was all this poverty and it was still corrupt. And so I was expecting the poverty and the corruption from what I knew from the news, you know, but I wasn't expecting all the religion. And I was asking myself, is this religion real? You know, is this faith lived out? Where is the fruit? And I think GK gave people a chance to live out their faith. It challenged their faith, to stretch their faith, you know, and that in the beginning made some people feel uncomfortable, just the way human nature tends to make business owners feel a bit uncomfortable. But that's good, because we don't grow in comfort. You know, growth is uncomfortable, but the result of growth is maturity. The result of growth is blessing. The result of growth is answered prayers, you know, and so many other benefits. And so putting faith into action, it's the Philippines where I first really saw that being done. It's in Gawad Kalinga where I saw that being done. And it's something we've tried to do in human nature. And so that's something that I try to share with other business people as well. That, you know, the best way to reach the sky is you get on your knees. And, you know, we often don't know what we're doing, but we've witnessed miracle after miracle after miracle. And we try to encourage people, you know, to go into genuine faith. A lot of people, you know, they go to church, but they still believe that success in life is dependent completely on them, and almost think that God will not help them. And so that's what then causes people to compromise their values when the heat is on, you know, pay some lagay or something like that. And it's very important that our faith is lived out. I would say, you know, for a lot of people, religion is a fear of death. It's like a death insurance policy, you know, that I go to church because when I die, I want this insurance policy that I'm going to go to heaven. So religion quite often is about death, but faith, putting our faith into action is about how we live. And I've found that, you know, the foundation of a miraculous life is really faith in God. And so whenever I meet these business people that maybe admire what human nature's done or would like to do it, I try to build their relationship with God, strengthen their relationship with God, because that's where the fruit is going to come from.
All right. Well, now at this point, I would like to share your Human Nature's website and show our audience here what you guys have prepared for this Christmas for people to gift to their loved ones. I'm going to share my screen here. I hope you see it okay. So this is talk to us a little bit about this. It says buy gifts and donate meals, and to Gawad Tuksina ng Kalinga, right?
Yeah. So Human Nature, we sell a lot of products at Christmas time. People give them as gifts. And we do that every year. And so this year we decided we wanted to, for gifts, for bundles that we sell, we wanted to be able to give meals. Here we go. Here are the first ones with those little red violators on. Buy one, gift, donate one meal. So some of the little bundles, you know, they start there at 234 pesos. For each one that's bought, we give a meal to Kusina and Kalinga. And some of the more expensive packs, the further down you go, the more expensive they get, and you'll see some, if you keep going, that where we'll give like three meals and 5 meals.
Right there.
Yeah, donate 3 meals. So for each bundle of those that is bought, we will give 3 meals to Kusina and Kalinga, or even 5 meals in some cases. And so, yeah, this idea, actually, this is not my idea. This came from one of our employees who started, sorry, can you go back up a little bit? Just go back up. I want to stop there. So that Proudly Pinoy Fiesta bundle, right in the middle of it is First Harvest. There's that little red box. Yeah. And they make peanut butter and things like that. And they are a small social enterprise that started in the GK Enchanted Farm. One of the founders, Kat Pateksil, is one of our employees. In fact, she heads now our branch network. And her husband, Tajen, established First Harvest. And when they were very small in the farm, that's what they were doing. For each peanut butter that they would sell, they would give a meal to Kusina and Kalinga. And they kind of shamed us because we hadn't even thought of that. I mean, we support GK, but we hadn't thought of doing that. And so now that's what we've done with these Christmas bundles. And so, we have this way that if you're in the US or anywhere, if you see up near the top, it says send gifts to the right, just near our logo there, to the right of the logo.
Oh, right there. Okay. Right here.
That says send gifts. Yeah. So if someone goes there, what they can do is they can put everything in their shopping cart. They can list the names and addresses of all the people they want to send. And then just in one go, we can send them all out to the different people, so it makes it nice and easy to do your Christmas shopping. You can send to 20 different people, 50 different people. And even if you don't know the address of someone, but you know their phone number, you can get it and then you can put their phone number. We'll call them or send an email if you know their email address so that they can put their full address in and then we can send it to them. So if there are people that you want to gift to, but you don't know their address, then we've made that easy as well. So not all the bundles are giving a meal to K&K, but there are some there. There are 13 bundles that we've chosen.
So they just have to look for this little red.
Yeah, look for that red logo there.
All right. Okay. Well, no, this is great. For some people who, they don't know, they want to send gifts to, to their families and friends in the Philippines, right? We really are, that's part of our culture, right? In the Philippines, Christmas is a time of giving, right? Well, this is a gift that keeps on giving, right? Not only are they able to help feed families through Kusina ng Kalinga, with your donation to Kusina ng Kalinga, but they also help people, keep their jobs, at Human Nature as well. So, with COVID, like you said, with the pandemic and everything, right? I mean, all of the businesses were affected one way or another, right? And you guys still continue to, to keep your employees and, and give to people who are in need, those people who are hungry. So, this is a great way of giving back. And this is a great way of sharing the love, not only to your family, but to people you might not even know that, that you might impact. So we encourage everyone to go ahead and send gifts. I will send one myself as soon as we are done here. I've actually been thinking about what to give a very special, friend of mine in the Philippines. She loves animals, and I know that all of the products that Human Nature have were tested without harming any animals. And I know you guys have cats and your own pets who are part of your household. So I know that this is not just some whatever PR, whatever. I know that that's how you live your life as well. So I am, I'm honored to be part of this, your promo, and at the same time be able to give a very special friend of mine a special gift this Christmas. I cannot mention her name because it's going to be a surprise.
Okay, great.
No,
yeah. Just to let you know, because
and I don't know her address.
Great. Well, you don't need to if you put her number there. Then just to mention, because if you're shopping from the US, normally what will come up is the US website. So you have to look at the little icon that will allow you to change it to the Philippine website.
Okay.
There's see there a little US flag, and if you click on that, it will allow you to change it to the Philippine website. And it's on the Philippine website only where you can actually have those gifts sent within the Philippines. So
awesome.
just
all right, we have a few announcements, but I want to make sure that I read all of the comments here. From Manny Salonga, he said, "Thank you, Dylan, for doing this to the Filipino people. You are really a godsend."
Just thank God. I really thank him for bringing me to the Philippines.
There was a question. I think you answered this already. Can we order from the US to be delivered to an address in the Philippines? That was from Teddy. Yes, Teddy, you can, but make sure to click the Philippine logo, the Philippine flag, right? And change if you're from the US. I don't know if she's from the US.
If you're going to the website for the first time, humanheartnature.com, it should show you like a few flags to choose from, and you can choose the
Mm.
Philippine one. Or if you've been there before, it's probably going to show you the American one already. So yeah, click on that American flag at the top, and it should allow you to change to the Philippine site.
All right. Okay, so I also wanted to share um, some announcements from GK USA right here, and I'm just going to scroll through. We actually started our campaign to raise funds to help those people who were impacted by the typhoons Raleigh and Ulysses. So please visit our website gk-usa.org. And then this Christmas again, you're talking about the gift that keeps on giving. We have Patikim, which is a partnership, GK USA's partnership with the Filipino food movement. For every purchase of a Patikim package, they will donate to the GK USA. And then we also we also have this Move, Give, Feed as One fundraising campaign, and this will benefit the Kusina ng Kalinga. So you might want to get together with your friends, group of people. You can buy, cook, dance, as it says there in the poster, and make a donation to Gawad Kalinga, and you can just click on that to participate. And then finally, we're obviously heavily promoting and supporting our anti-hunger campaign. And and if you can just if you want for $60, that will feed a child for 120 days. All right. And that is it. All right. Awesome. So yeah, Rob and I just finished our Tree for the Hungry fundraiser, which we started on November 1st, which is, as you know, is the day we remembered our loved ones who have departed, right? But we launched our Tree for the Hungry because we also want to remember the living, and we want to help them, continue living, right? And by not going hungry. So we raised some funds to help feed hungry children in the Philippines as well. And I tell you, Dylan, this work really is so amazing. We received donations, and this is via Facebook, right? So obviously we invited all of our friends, but we received donations from friends we don't even know, or I should say from people we didn't know, and we still have not met in person, but now, they are friends because of our work for the poor, for Gawad Kalinga. So, wealth, you coming from a wealthy, affluent, life, right? We talk about wealth, but the true measure of wealth is not so much about the money, is it? It's really about how comfortable you are in giving and how much of it you're willing to give, not only in terms of money, but in terms of really giving people a chance for a better life, right? And that's pretty much what you and Anna and Camille and everyone there in Human Nature are really doing for a lot of people, in the Philippines, starting from your employees, their families that you impact, and the people who purchase your products, really.
Yeah, I'm so proud of our people in Human Nature. Most of them were not from GK, but seeing what the ideas that they come up with now and the things that they've been doing, especially during COVID, to help others. I mean, just hundreds of ideas and hundreds of things that they've been doing. Like you, that's a beautiful, beautiful way of looking at it. Like remembering the dead will also remember the living. That's beautiful.
Well, I got it from you, actually. I remember you in one of your talks, you said that, what was it? Ninoy Aquino said that the Filipinos are worth dying for. And then you said, but the Filipinos are also worth living for. Something like that, like in one of your talks. I'm like, maybe today we should remember living also, right? So, well, final words, Dylan. Let me just, sorry, my husband also commented, he said he needs stuff for his beard. Yeah, so he's the shopper between the two of us, right? So this time, honey, it's all right. Go ahead and shop, right? And that this will help people. Let's go ahead and do it, and it will make people happy because the product, and you're going to be happy as well with our products, right? So yeah, I guess he saw that ad that Fox did but I think it was like a poster or something.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Camille
so
Thompson.
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so I got a little distracted there, thanks to my husband. But okay, so final words, Dylan. Let me just ask you this one question. If you did not, how would your life, how do you think your life would have been if you had not gone to the Philippines, did not know about GK, and did not meet Anna?
Oh my goodness, I cannot imagine what my life would have been. I mean, I had everything materially, but I was pretty miserable, really, because I felt like I was not a good person. I was not doing anything worthwhile. I felt like I'd just become this greedy, selfish person. And if I never found the Philippines, if God hadn't brought me here, who knows? I could have been, a rich alcoholic or something. I have no idea. But the beautiful thing is, when you give, God gives back to you. And in fact, one of my favorite verses in the Bible is in Proverbs. It says, when you give to the poor, you're lending to the Lord, and he will repay you. So can you imagine? God promises that whatever we give to the poor, he's going to pay it back to us. And God pays back with a good rate of interest. That's what I've found. I have the most wonderful wife, the most wonderful children. I feel like my life has been put to some good use, finally, and it's just a wonderful way to live. So give, and it will be given back to you. That's also what Jesus promises, a good measure, shaken, pressed down, and overflowing. That's what he promises. And that's certainly true in Gawad Kalinga, isn't it?
Awesome, awesome. Again, Dylan, thank you for the pleasure of being able to interview you, and thank you for being a friend, you and Anna, all these years. It's been a real blessing to know you, and thank you for, on behalf of my fellow Filipinos, for what you have done and continue to do for the Philippines, and wealth in your life is not. I mean, obviously, you have the wealth in human nature, growing this business from what Tito Tony Melotto then said was, Anna and you, like, doing some fruit salad thingy like in the kitchen or something like that, into this, multiple, like locations of human nature stores all across, the country. And so, but that is not the wealth that we talk about here, but the wealth of just, being all your family, and how this has also impacted not only not only other people's lives, but especially your own life as well. So thank you so much. And then on that note, we bring you again this 12th episode of Quantum GK. Please make it a habit every Thursday at 5 p.m. Please join us and get to know more about inspiring and amazing stories of Gawad Kalinga. Have a good night, everyone, and good morning there in the Philippines.
Good morning. God bless.
God bless.